Today we're going to be working on a survey files that we did last week. We did our GPS survey. We created a point file that was in our data collector as part of a survey instrument, and then we downloaded that file, made it into a CSV file, and say we're going to import it. We're going to work with that and see how finish out the process of the surveying, do some drafting on it, retouch, some of the surveying stuff we've done in the past. We've been out in the field the last 2 weeks. We might be a little rusty on it. So we're working through that today. First off, if we open the file, it should look like this. It's pretty blank. Right from that, our first step is going to be importing the points and creating some layers for that. And make sure that you're in Civil 3D. So up here at the top, make sure you're opened Civil 3D and you want to be in your Civil 3D workspace. Quite often I work in drafting and annotation workspace. That's this one. And so we have little different toolbars up here, but we need to be able to see to bring in the data points, you have to be in Civil 3D. So click in Civil 3D in there. And now I've got my tool space over here, and I've got some other tools and so forth I'm going to need to get started today. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a layer called survey points. And I can find that if I go to view, and I can go to my layer manager and make sure my layers, that's my properties one. Here's my layer manager, design center. There it is, layer. And mine's over to the side. I'll bring it over here. And I've just got layer 0 so far. That's our default start layer. It's great. I'm going to create a new layer. I'll click the new layer button up there, and I'm going to call this survey underscore points. And I am going to pick it as a color 12. And it's kind of a red color or off red color. All right, from that, and I'm going to make it active by clicking on the green check mark. So I'm ready to go now. I'm going to bring this to the side. Okay. So I should be all set, and now I'm going to come up here and I am going to do insert, and I'm going to do points from file, and it brings this up. To start off with, it's asking for what file, and I did a little green plus sign, and I'm going to find Fights CSV. And what format is that in? So it's trying to show it to you here, depending on what format you pick. And our format is point number northern easting Z, it's the elevation, and then description. And down here you can see, yeah, that looks about right. Northern easting point elevation and description. I'm going to add it to a group. I'm going to add that group. You can pick the name here. Mine's already in there, so I'm going to do Fight Survey and click OK. Okay, and now it popped in, and you can see the points, and they are on that layer. They are on, which is that weirdish red color right from that. So there's our points. If you zoom in on them, you can see what they are. This is the standard description. Here's the point number. Here's the elevation. Here's what the description is for that. So it's the format for all of them. So those are walls. Here's storm sewer. And here's SDW. Remember our point codes from last week is the sidewalk and so forth from there. So that's great. Right? My layers have popped in now, and we're ready to go. So the next thing up we want to do is now we want to add some more layers and add some more detail to it. And I see up here at the top, geolocation is in blue. It's trying to kind of hint to you that maybe you want to use this. And so in our case, yes, we do. We want to do geolocation, so I'm going to click on that. And right now my map is turned off. I'm going to turn that map on. I'm going to go to Map Aerial and turn it on. And it automatically just goes out to the web and figures out where you're at, because it knows where these points are, because it knows what datum and what projection for our survey it is. And so it was able to find it and put them in there. And you can see they're scattered around here. And I surveyed the edges of the sidewalks, and you can see that these points here should be sidewalk. Yep. They don't match up exactly on the sidewalks, and that's okay. This is really normal. It's almost impossible to get aerial surveys or maps to match up exactly onto where your points were and for your survey points. Our survey points are a lot more accurate than his aerial photography is. And it just could be that they didn't ortho project this quite perfectly. I mean, they do a pretty good job, but it's never quite perfect. And so don't be too surprised if when you add a background image in, it doesn't quite match up to where your points are. So that's okay. And so we've got that in there. And it looks kind of cool, right? So we're all happy with that. And save every now and then. You don't want this to get lost. Right from there. Now we're going to create some more layers, and in the notes it tells you which layers we're going to add. We're going to, I'm just going to add in probably just one of them in interest of time, and I'll let you do the rest on there. So this is just showing you how to get it going. So I'm going to add one I'm supposed to do is called sidewalk, and we made that yellow. And I think we used a thicker line. Yeah, let's use a 0.3 so it pops up a little bit better. So there's my 0.3 millimeters, and I'm going to make it active so I can use that one now. And I'm going to pull this over to the side to get it out of the way. Whoa, not there. There we go. And I can turn on my layer weights by this button down here at the bottom. If you hover over that, it'll show you that. Right now I don't have anything drawn, so you're not going to see the difference, but once I start drawing the sidewalk, you'll see what that is. So that's active. Go back to home, and now I want to start a line, and that is over here in draw. So let's create lined, and I'm going to connect together all my sidewalk points so I can see what the sidewalk looks like. And I'm going to snap to the node to the center of it. Again, don't forget you can go to your OSnap down here, and you can set which things are turned on. And so you're going to want to be able to turn on node, and that'll find the center of these little X's through that, and intersection maybe right from there. So I'm going to snap to that. That's my first sidewalk point, and then I just keep driving along here, and I scroll in, and that's a sidewalk point. And I use my middle scroll wheel held down to pan, and then I zoom in using the middle wheel, and I'm going to connect all these little sidewalk points. Wait till it snaps. There it goes. Snap. I'm missing a few points out here. We didn't do a perfect survey on this, but the inside of this sidewalk is pretty continuous all the way around. So I'm just going to connect all these dots. There, I'm missing a few on the outside of the sidewalk, or they were obscured enough by the trees that the coordinates are way off on them. And let's do a couple more real quick, and we'll call it good. Also, by snapping to this point, you can't see it, but this is being snapped in 3 dimensions, in 3D, and it's going right to that elevation. And so if we check that out, right, I just clicked on that line. Here's my properties dialog box. Over here, you can see these 2 elevations, 797.23, 796.95. It's not just random. Those are actually the ends of this line. So if we zoom in, here's our 796.98. Here's our 797.23 on that. And so that's, right, those are those elevations right there. And so we can tell that we really did snap to those points through that. And that's what we want. And so we want to be in, even though we don't, a lot of times in civil, we don't work in 3 dimensions explicitly. We don't do isometric views that often. It's good to have these points actually on the correct elevations, because later on we do surface models, and we'll make contours and so forth, and so that needs to be in the right place. So like I said, I'm just going along here and just drawing over the tops of these lines and creating the edge line. I'm drawing in the edge line of the sidewalk based off the survey. And no, it does not match up with what the aerial is showing. The aerial is just kind of a rough, kind of give you a feel for where you're at and see if you're close to where you're at. And it's not, we don't expect it to be perfectly lined up with these edges. And then down here, I could do the same here. I've got a little bit of the sidewalk in, and I've got all this down there. But that's enough to get started. And then you'll also do the wall. The wall's over here. If you zoom in here, here's a wall line through that. Here's another wall point. You'll connect these ones along the wall. On the inside of those, on this side, would be some more You'll also have some more sidewalk, and there's 4 little wall points over here. There's a wall that kind of juts out there on the side. Through that, and then we did some sidewalk back here, but not a lot. I wouldn't go too much farther up on the side there. There's an example of the notes for today. The next thing I'm going to do is want to add in some blocks. And to do that, I need to open up Design Center. And we did Design Center a few weeks ago, and it's been a while. It's before spring break. And we may not remember where to find Design Center. So if we open up, if I go to View and go to Palettes, and Design Center is right here. And I fire it up, and it comes up on my other screen, and so it pops up over here. And in your downloadable files today is one called Block Library. And you won't see it probably immediately when you come into Design Center. You're going to have to open it up, and you're going to have to find it. You have to go to Block Library, open Block Library. There it is. We expand it, and we click on blocks. Now I can see all the blocks that are in that block library from that. You're going to create a new layer called Storm Sewer, and I can bring this over here. We can do that real quick. And Storm Sewer, and I think I made it green or some version of green from there. And check in the notes for what the line weight should be for that. And so I activate that and make it the active layer. Pull this off the screen so I can see what I'm doing over here. So that's now the active layer, and I'm going to insert Storm Sewer block, and from this array of many blocks in here that are in that file, I think I'm going to use SMH is the proper one. It pops up here. It's the standard block insert that we would expect, and I think we were making our scale 4. It's uniform. You can leave all the rest of this alone. I'm going to turn off rotation and go OK. And get this out of the way. And now you can see it. I've got a little, very tiny, but I've got a little Storm Sewer icon, little block hanging there. And here's my Storm Sewer, and I'm going to snap it to the center. There we go. And here's my 0.1003, which is stormwater layer. And there it is. So it dropped in there. And that's a little hard to see. I can brighten up that green by changing the layer here. Let's go to that green. There we go. Now it pops out. There we go. So I just inserted my little block for the Storm Sewer. I'm going to also do one for the invert over here. The invert is buried kind of down in here, which is in the bottom of that pond. And I'm going to insert a block to show the end of that, like the end of a pipe coming out. And that looks like an end section. And we've got an end section block in here. And here's our stormwater out block. And I think this one I'm going to turn on rotation, and I think I'm going to use a 12 on there. Click OK. Get rid of this. All right. And now I've got this little end section. Storm Sewer. Where's my invert? There's my invert. And this one I said do rotation on screen, so I can turn this any way I want. This one pipe was aimed that direction, so I'm going to put it right there. So now I've inserted my 2 blocks. Right, from that, that's just an example how to use Design Center to find your blocks and then to insert them again. So it's been a while since we used it, so it's a good review on that. And then we're also going to put in the benchmark. The benchmark is over here. You'll also be inserting a symbol for benchmark on that. Next up is then we're going to do a layout tab. And so I'm going to jump over here. I'm going to hit layout. Right. It's just a standard size sheet, 8.5 by 11. I'm going to change all that. I'm going to change up my page setup manager. I'm going to modify layout 1. I'm going to start, as we've done before, we're going to pick all my files, drawing the DWG. I'm going to use an ANSI full bleed B 11 by 17. I'm going to scale line weights. I'm going to pick monochrome. Plot transparency. I think everything else looks good. And close. And it changed the size of my sheet in my layout view, in my paper space. And now I have a much bigger sheet, right, than I did before. And that's fine. Right. That's okay. I'm going to make some more layers. You'll need quite a few. I'm just going to do this fairly quickly. I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to call it sheet title block. And going to change the color, just make it some off color. Doesn't really matter. And I'm going to probably make this really fat line for that. And I'm going to make it the active layer. Come on. There we go. Get this over to the side. And I'll come up here back to home. And I'm going to use this rectangular view one. And just draw a big box around for my title block. There we go. Right. Nice thick line in there. Here's my viewport. Let's get this moved up. Something like that. I need one more line across here to complete my title block. Snap perpendicular. There we go. So there's my little title block. All set and ready to go from that. And in fact, I may make this a little bit thicker. Let's go to 0.7. It's a really big line, so it'll pop. There we go. Let's change my viewport so it goes all the way down. There we go. And now inside the viewport, here's all my points. And let's scale those. Let's change the scale down here to 1 to 40 and 1 to 30. Do 1 to 30, 1 to 30 looks great. And there's all my points. What you can't see is you can't see the aerial unit. So you may be asking yourself, what happened to the aerial in the background? Well, we have to clip it. The active layer, the dynamic aerial in the background, you know, the more I scroll out, the bigger it gets, and the bigger it gets, and the bigger it gets. And it'll just keep doing that. It goes quite a while. To actually trap, I guess, that image into our file and be able to use it and be able to plot it, is I have to clip it. And so I'm going to come back to geolocation. I'm going to do capture area. And it's going to ask me to block in the area I want captured. And this is going to be more of a static image then. So I'll make it pretty big. Make sure I have plenty of room around our survey area, which is over here. Right, from there, and that should be it. Right, from that, if I go back to home, and it did it on the layer I was working in, and I didn't really want that. But if I go back to layout, now we've got it. So now we've captured it, and there it is, right from there. The other thing we don't want to do is we don't want to plot all these points, because that just, it looks messy, and we don't, most times that's too much detail. So I'm going to come back over to the layer manager, and I'm going to make this a non-plot layer. So the layer that had all of our survey points on it, I'm going to make it a non-plot layer by clicking on the little printer icon, and it should have a little do not enter sign almost, or symbol, a little red symbol with a white bar in the center of it. And so that means it's not going to plot those now. And so those will not be plotted. And I'm going to ask you to come in and put text in down here in the title block and make it look like a real title block. But again, this is just an intro to it. You should know how to add text. You're just going to go to annotate. You're going to do multi-line text, and add in some text in there. And probably make a new layer. I'd like to keep on different layers so I can control what is seen and how it's seen and so forth. So I'd put that on a different layer. Through that, I'm asking you to do a few different dimensions and so forth. So I will add another one in here called Ano. I'll make that a yellow one. And we're going to make it a 0.3. How's that? All these details are in the notes, but so it looks halfway decent when we get started. I'm going to use an aligned measurement, And we were going, I think, between sidewalk points over here. So you can just, hopefully I've got the right one. Oops. I think I made the mistake. There we go. If I snap properly to this, there we go. Snap to that point, snap to that point. All right. I did not make. That is measuring in paper space, and it should be measuring in model space units. When I tested this a minute ago, it was working properly. Of course it was. Now it is being ornery about it. Let me try one more over here. Snap to that. See if I can get closer in and snap to there. It is not snapping to the model space dimensions, which it should. Like I say, it worked for me a minute ago. It could just be that I've got too many files open and it's having trouble keeping things straight in there. I don't think even without here in space, nope, it's not going to do it for me. Let's see if it'll do it off if I've got this line in here. Maybe it's not like points. If we did the line elements. Yeah, there we go. Now it picked up model space. So this is 43 feet long. It shouldn't be less than 1. That means it's measured in inches, which is the paper space dimensions. And so you're going to draw in these lines first, and you're going to put some dimensions on it. So it should work. It should work fine. It was just for some reason it's having trouble snapping to the these survey points. This is way too many decimals. I only want 2 decimals, so I can really quickly come up here and change these styles. Go to standard. I'm going to modify. I'm going to jump over here to units. I'm going to change my precision down to 2 decimal places. Click OK. Click close. Right now I've got the 2 decimal places, which is our standard, and for our feet. So 43.89 feet would be that. So you'll be adding those dimensions on there. You're going to be doing some call outs using the multi-leader command. Right, from that, you're just going to, it's running really slow on me. All right, you're going to use the multi-leader command, add in some things, invert, and so forth. And again, all that's detailed in the notes for you. So you'll be doing all that. And then when you're done with that, we're going to print it. Up here to the little print icon. All right, you can preview it in monochrome. There you go. So that should be fine. It should come out. For some reason, my ANO is automatically set to a non-print. We can turn that back on and be fine. Right from that. So that's today's in class is bringing in the points, modifying them, adding in a lot of lines. It takes much longer to do the line work out of that, creating a paper space, and then plotting that to paper space. So this will be good to review. It's been a few weeks since we did plots and did some paper space stuff. So that'll get us ready for the ICA then.